Colleagues. Yes. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank a few people for their work throughout this process. Of course, I want to thank our finance chair, who I call my general, Council Member Justin Brannan. Justin's strong leadership was so pivotal to the progress that this council achieved in its fight for investments and restorations. I also want to express deep appreciation to my entire leadership team of Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, Majority Leader Amanda Farias, Majority Whip Sylvina Brooks Powers, and Council Members Keith Powers, Carlina Rivera, Rafael Salamanca, and Sandra Ang. I also want to thank the members of the Council's budget negotiating team, which includes my full leadership team, and all the Council members here with us today throughout this process. Council members Gail Brewer, Eric Dinowitz, Kevin Riley, Althea Stevens, Linda Lee, Natasha Williams, Lynn Schulman, Julie Wan, Shaker Krishnan, Crystal Hudson, Rita Joseph, Mercedes Narcisse, and Joe Borelli. And we would not be here today if not for our dedicated finance division staff led by Tanisha Edwards and Richard Lee. This budget and the investments we secured for New Yorkers are only possible because of your hard work and dedication as true public servants. I also want to thank my senior staff and every division and staff member of the City Council and council members' staff. Thank you all. As a woman majority and the men who get it, and the most diverse council in our city's history, representing every unique corner of this city, we understand the multitude of challenges that our communities and constituents face, the services they rely on, and what they need from our city government. In my State of the City, I said, let's get back to basics. New Yorkers need an effective government so that all of us and future generations can build their legacies in our great city. That continued to be our North Star for this budget, to build a strong and stable foundation for our city and for all New Yorkers. It's also important to recognize the fiscal realities we're up against. The expiration of pandemic-era federal funding is a continuing challenge to our budgets, and it means we need new funding streams to supplant it. This is especially true for education and early childhood education. Moving forward, our city will need additional contributions from state government to help sustain the level of funding needed for these programs. We cannot afford to do this work alone. The Council also acknowledged the uncertainty in the economy and other challenges our city had to confront. Despite these challenges, though, we believed in the strength of this city and its resilient economy. Our Council Finance Division and its economists correctly guided us with the data regarding what to expect in terms of our economic outlook and forecasted revenues. We were clear about the challenges and that we have the resources to invest in New Yorkers and protect what they rely on. The families and people of this city need affordable housing and early childhood education to remain here. Our students need support to continue recovering from historic learning loss from the pandemic. And we must prioritize resources for mental health care, community safety, cultural institutions, libraries, parks, senior services, and so many other vital programs. Skyrocketing housing costs and the lack of affordable housing also guided our work to secure investments for more affordable housing development and home ownership opportunities with the leadership of Chairs Riley, Salamanca, Sanchez, and Banks, along with many other members. We are immensely proud of the work by this council to restore funding for these priorities for New Yorkers. At the same time, we know there is so much more that our city and communities need. It is imperative for our city's future that the budget process moves away from restoring and towards strengthening and building. Early childhood education has been a priority for this council, which is made up of new parents, parents-to-be, many of whom have young children. We know how critical it is to children's development and to New Yorkers' abilities to raise their families right here. In this budget, we took on a unique role as a legislature to more actively get involved in fixing the administration of our early childhood education system because its continuing operational problems are undermining its ability to reliably serve our children and families. We recognize this was both a fight for funding and one to save and strengthen these critical programs from challenges that cannot be allowed to persist. Right now, we have fewer applications than budgeted seats. We also have vacant seats despite many families being able to obtain one. This is a problem that we must address because this system is too important to fail our families. Our comprehensive approach includes funding for more seats to meet the immediate needs of the families who didn't get a seat after applying for the coming year. It also adds preschool special education seats to ensure that hundreds of children with disabilities who remained on waiting lists can finally access their legally required seats. We also put forward strong reforms, including funding for a revived outreach effort to ensure families know about their options, converting even more seats to full day, full year to meet the needs of working families, and established a working group with the council, mayor's office, DOE, and OMB that will meet every other week to confront the system's challenges on a granular level. For us, this agreement is the foundation for stabilizing and strengthening the system so we can achieve a real universal system of 3K based on utilization. We have the capacity to secure a seat for every child. We must get this right to help families remain in this city and help them succeed. We also invested in supports for our students who are still struggling to recover from historic levels of learning loss and disruptions caused by the pandemic. Students will continue to benefit from school-based social workers, restorative justice, community schools, and other programs without interruption, which has always been a goal for this council. I want to thank the members who helped us get here, especially those who rolled up their sleeves to get into the details. Education Chair Joseph and Children and Youth Chair Stevens' leadership was pivotal to safeguarding our children's futures and uplifting working families across our city. I also want to thank Council Member Jen Gutierrez for her leadership in these efforts as well. We restored investments to CUNY, our city's engine of opportunity, so New Yorkers have continued access to educational and economic opportunities. Thank you to Higher Education Chair Dinowitz for your commitment to CUNY. We are also proud to have secured critical investments for affordable housing production, home ownership opportunities, and public housing, as well as unprecedented funding baselined for city FEPs. Yeah. This is the type of investment that New Yorkers need to live in our city and raise their families right here. We fought hard to secure restorations and baseline funding for our cultural institutions and libraries, thanks to the leadership of Chair Rivera and the members of this council who stood right behind her in fighting for this funding. I'm also so proud of what we did for our city's parks, thanks to Parks and Recreation Chair Krishnan and council members who understood the value of protecting these very precious resources. We cannot forget about our older adults who are the jewels of our communities and for whom we secured important investments to help them lead healthy and connected lives. Thank you to our aging chair, Crystal Hudson, for leading us to honor our olding adults by securing more of what they actually deserve. Transit is the lifeblood of our city, and expanding access to it remains a priority for this council. Through our hard work, more low-income New Yorkers will now have affordable access to public transit by expanding fares eligibility. I want to thank Transportation and Infrastructure Chair Brooks Powers for her efforts to continue expanding and strengthening this crucial program. We also secured important investments for justice-involved supportive housing, alternatives to incarceration, trauma recovery centers, and funding to save smaller mental health clubhouses that faced the risk of closure. This council has consistently championed community-based safety programs that make neighborhoods safer and mental health resources to prevent people from slipping into crisis, and we will continue to invest these proven solutions. I thank Mental Health, Disabilities, and Addiction Chair Lee and Criminal Justice Chair Sandy Nurse for your critical leadership to advance a holistic vision of health and safety that is rooted in evidence-based solutions. The health of New Yorkers has always been our priority, and we were proud to fully restore funding to HIV/AIDS services and commit tens of millions of dollars more in the capital plan for a new trauma center in the Rockaways. To help make sure that no one goes hungry, we restored funding for the Community Food Connection program to combat hunger and food insecurity throughout our city. I thank Deputy Speaker Ayala, Health Chair Schulman, and Hospitals Chair Narcisse for prioritizing the health of New Yorkers, and of course, our Majority Whip who pushed for the trauma center on the Rockaway Peninsula. I am also proud of the investments we secured to support our city's oversight bodies and those that protect the civil rights and safety of New Yorkers, including the CCRB, the CCHR, DOI, and EEPC. We could not have done this without the leadership of Oversight and Investigations Chair Brewer and Civil and Human Rights Chair Williams. There are so many parts of this budget that the council fought to restore, whether it was Council Member Shawn Abreu fighting for community composting and litter bath services, or Council Members Ung and Wan fighting for language access and interpreter programs to build a more inclusive city. Throughout this entire process, we've been in conversation with our constituents and advocates in our communities to deliver a budget that truly reflects the needs of all New Yorkers. Every single win was hard fought on behalf of our neighbors and all New Yorkers. And as I said the other day, we are our own constituents. This council lives in the most diverse sector of every single place in this city. Had it not been for the experience lived by every council member, we could not touch the needs of all New Yorkers. I'm so proud that we, as the most diverse council in the city of the history of New York, have touched our constituents to make sure that their needs were met. And as we move forward, once again, we have to shift from a focus on restoring to one of strengthening programs and services that we know New Yorkers need and deserve. I thank you all for your attention. Colleagues, I thank you all for your work, your commitment, and your dedication. And now it is my honor to turn it over to our finance chair, my general, Justin Brannan.
Thank you, Speaker. Reports of New York City's demise have been greatly exaggerated. But making sure that this city remains the capital of the world doesn't happen on its own. There are plenty of cities that would be happy to take our crown, and that's precisely why what we invest in here today and for the next year matters so much. The city budget is arguably the most important policy document we produce every year. It's more than simply a financial plan and a list of expenditures. It's our city's statement of values. It shows the rest of the world what the greatest city on the planet cares about. All throughout this year's budget process, the Council was dialed in on our shared priorities and our confidence that we had the revenue needed to restore these cuts. New York City's post-pandemic economy has proved durable and resilient. Buoyed by working and middle-class New Yorkers, the very people we must invest in now. With all eyes on us, we knew this was the time to invest in everyday people that drive our city's present and will build our city's future. We fought hard for our priorities, and today we're proud to say, with an additional $2 billion secured through negotiations since the first draft of this budget, the FY25 budget will deliver on everything from early childhood education to our libraries, arts and cultural institutions, to addressing our city's housing crisis, making investments in mental health programs, and expanding fair fares. During negotiations, we focused our many priorities on the multiplier effect by doubling down on investments in popular programs that are not only good, sound public policy, but that also make economic sense with an exponentially positive impact. This budget fully restores $60.6 million in cultural institution funding. That includes the $7.6 million preliminary PEG from executive budget and $53 million at adoption, $13 million of which is baselined. This budget achieves full restoration of $58.3 million to restore 7-day-a-week library services across all library systems, with $52.6 million of the administration's funding baselined, so that going forward, library budget negotiations will begin at $42.6 million. Yeah. So I want to talk about that for a second, because in this budget, through negotiations with City Hall, the Council achieved historic baselining funding. What that means is that next year and a decade from now, future councils and mayors won't have to negotiate over bedrock funding to everything from our libraries and cultural institutions to housing vouchers, home-delivered meals, parks maintenance, early childhood education. This is a very, very big deal. And to the class of Council 2044, you're welcome. In this budget, the Council secured over $711 million for public education, plus $64 million in restorations to CUNY, with over $63 million of that added after the mayor's executive budget through our negotiations. That includes funding for operational support, as well as the critical CUNY programs that are personal and important to this body. Programs like CUNY Reconnect, ACE, and ASAP for All. The Council secured restorations and investments in the city budget for key interventions and solutions to improve mental health, reduce recidivism, and support victims of crime, including $6.4 million for justice-involved supportive housing, $14.8 million in restorations for alternatives to incarceration and reentry programs, $4.8 million for trauma recovery centers, and $2 million to protect smaller mental health clubhouses that were at risk of losing funding under a new RFP that favors larger clubhouses. To continue addressing our city's housing crisis, this council secured a historic $2 billion increase in capital funding for the creation and preservation of more affordable rental units, supportive housing, and home ownership opportunities, including at the deepest levels of affordability. The council also secured over $614 million to support city FEPs, and as the Speaker mentioned, with a record $540 million of that program baselined for the first time ever. That's a really big deal. For our seniors, the council secured $4.75 million to increase funding for home-delivered meals, $12.2 million restoration and replacement of expiring federal funds for older adult centers. We were also able to fully restore nearly $7 million for security guards at NYCHA senior buildings. And I could always tell when the parks budget has been cut instead of the grass because the weeds are taller than my greyhounds. With that in mind, the council fought like dogs and secured $15 million for second shift positions for our park workers, in addition to $8.7 million to support urban park rangers, tree stump removal, and green thumb restoration. One of the most important parts, it might not be listed in the budget, we were able to get City Hall to agree to lift the attrition peg, also known as a hiring freeze, so the Parks Department can start hiring parks workers and gardeners immediately. Where are my composting fans? In this budget, as the Speaker mentioned, we restored $6.2 million to community composting to support the great local organizations that do the work, while also providing public outreach and education efforts to increase participation in the city's curbside organic collection program created by the council's law. And I always say a clean city is a safe city, and a safe city is the foundation for everything else. So this one was very important to us. $25 million for New York City Department of Sanitation to restore and expand more frequent corner trash can pickups in every neighborhood. But wait, there's more. We were also able to successfully restore funding for the Community Food Connection Program, which is a historic baseline enhancement for fair fares with expanded eligibility, so more New Yorkers struggling to get by won't need to choose between a MetroCard and a meal. $10 million to restore funding for adult literacy programs. $1.6 million to restore runaway and homeless youth housing navigators, and much more that you'll be able to read about in the final budget documents. I want to take a second to thank Jeremy Fiza, Richard Mandela, and Jonathan Yedden. I absolutely spoke to these 5 people more than I spoke to my own wife over the past 2 months. And and happy birthday to my wife. We were really dialed in, so much so that I would send an email at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, where did we land on this? And 2 minutes later, 4 people would respond. No one was sleeping until we got this right and we got our priorities restored. And that's true. I've been around this building for a while, first as a staffer and now as a council member, and I can honestly say I've never seen or worked with a speaker like Adrienne Adams, who truly leads from the bottom up. Speaker Adams doesn't make her personal priorities the council priorities. She doesn't try to force what she cares about on the members. It's quite the opposite. If her members care about something, then it becomes her personal priority. I'm in the meetings and in these negotiations, and the speaker fights like hell, and let me tell you, it ain't over till it's over. Lastly, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the entire council, from our fearless leader to the mighty leadership team and the members of the Can't Stop, Won't Stop budget negotiating team, all of my colleagues, and the army of finance staff and analysts who work so hard this time of year and who put in so much work to make this deal possible today. Today, the council will vote on a budget that we believe is worthy of New Yorkers' support. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're going on topic. Julia? Hi, Kelly. Great questions. For your first question, yeah, we did that. We did that, and we feel great about it. And we did it because we truly believed in our finance unit. We believed in the validity of their numbers, of our economists. We had the ultimate faith in their knowledge. So we feel great about what the end result was. As far as the other piece, making it down to the wire today, again, our commitment as a council was always to pass an on-time budget. We would not have wanted to set another precedent for the city of New York. There would have been other things that would have been said about the city of New York had this council not done its due diligence to pass this budget on time. Thank you.
What do you say to voters who worry the city's spending too much? You know, the city's gotten in trouble before. Mayor Adams is certainly trying to be very conservative in spending. Do we have the money? Is it going to affect taxes? What do you say to concerned voters?
I'm going to let the finance chair answer that. I'm confident in New York's fiscal capability.
I say this a lot, especially this time of year. I think it's still, unfortunate, a popular misconception about the size of the budget, right? It's not, I think there's still people that think that we sit down at zero every year and just start spending until we run out of ideas. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, right? We are charter mandated to allocate the money that the city takes in. So a budget that grows year over year means that the city economy is growing year over year. And we're not spending on debt, right? This is money that we have to either allocate or save that's been brought in by tax receipts. And it shows signs of a very healthy post-pandemic economy. And now's the time to double down on these investments.
Is it tax neutral?
Yeah.
I don't like that comment because, you know, my dog Skylar is somewhere in there. She doesn't really.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
We're not going to answer.
a lot of the negotiations is making our priorities shared priorities of City Hall and showing that these are investments that we believe are popular, that we believe are important, that we believe are meaningful. And that's what the negotiation is all about. And I think, you know, you see happy faces because we were able to get a lot of that done. And I think, look, investing in our cultural institutions and libraries and CUNY, these are across the board popular things to do. So this is a good day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all very much.